The U.S. just hit Chinese electric vehicles with a 100% tariff. Sounds like a victory for American automakers, right? But what if I told you this move could actually drive up car prices, kill American jobs, and stall EV innovation? The U.S.-China trade war is now a battlefield for the future of electric vehicles. And in this high-stakes showdown, it's not clear who the real winners are. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our deep dives into global economics. Let's get started. Why did the U.S. impose these tariffs? The U.S. government imposed tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles as a strategic move to protect domestic manufacturers. The goal? To level the playing field by countering China's heavy subsidies, which allow their EVs to flood global markets at lower prices. Policymakers argue that without these tariffs, American automakers would struggle to compete, leading to massive job losses and economic decline in one of the most critical manufacturing sectors. Additionally, the Biden administration aims to accelerate investment in domestic EV production, battery supply chains, and infrastructure, reducing dependence on Chinese imports. However, while this protectionist approach sounds logical, its effectiveness remains highly debated. Some experts warn that these tariffs might trigger unintended consequences, leading to higher consumer prices and stagnating the U.S. EV market's growth instead of fostering innovation. How will tariffs impact consumers? While tariffs are meant to protect American businesses, they often come with hidden costs. A major downside? A surge in prices for consumers. The U.S. is still heavily reliant on China for critical EV components, especially lithium-ion batteries. With tariffs in place, costs for domestic manufacturers will rise, and these increases will be passed down to consumers. That means more expensive electric vehicles, slower EV adoption, higher costs for American families. And that's not all. China has a history of responding to U.S. tariffs with countermeasures, impacting key industries like agriculture, technology, and even the broader automotive supply chain. Beyond direct costs, tariffs may also slow down innovation. If automakers are forced to absorb higher costs or redirect investments toward navigating trade restrictions instead of developing new technology, the U.S. could lose its competitive edge in the global EV market. Are American automakers actually at risk? Ironically, the very companies that tariffs are meant to protect, American automakers, might be among the biggest losers. Why? Because the U.S. auto industry relies on a global supply chain. Parts and raw materials are sourced from multiple countries, including China. Tariffs will increase production costs for Ford, GM, Tesla, and others. Higher costs equals higher prices or lower profit margins. Neither option is ideal. Higher prices equals consumers delaying EV purchases. Absorbing costs equals lower profits, potential job cuts. And there's an even bigger risk. If China retaliates by restricting access to critical battery materials, such as lithium and rare earth metals, American automakers could face severe shortages and production delays. Without strategic countermeasures, the U.S. risks falling behind in the global EV race. How will China respond? China is known for strategic countermeasures when economic pressure is applied. Now that the U.S. has imposed EV tariffs, it's almost certain that Beijing will retaliate. Historically, China has responded by targeting U.S. agriculture with new tariffs, restricting U.S. auto exports to China, limiting access to rare earth metals critical for EV batteries. Additionally, China could boost its support for domestic EV makers, allowing them to flood global markets with even cheaper alternatives. As tensions escalate, we have to ask, do the economic gains of these tariffs outweigh the risks of an all-out trade conflict with the world's largest EV producer? Final verdict. Who really wins? At first glance, tariffs might seem like a win for American automakers, protecting them from cheaper Chinese competition. But in reality, the consequences are far more complex. U.S. manufacturers still rely on China for batteries and components. Production costs will rise and those expenses will be passed to consumers. Higher prices could slow EV adoption, contradicting the government's push for green energy. Meanwhile, China will look for alternative markets, strengthening trade ties with Europe, Latin America, and Africa. This shift could leave the U.S. more isolated in the long run, with American automakers struggling to stay competitive globally. So the real winners might not be U.S. consumers or manufacturers, but rather China's expanding influence in the EV market. What's your take? Do these tariffs protect American industry, or are they setting us up for an economic disaster? Drop a comment below. And if you found this breakdown insightful, hit that like button and subscribe to stay ahead of the economic storm. Thanks for watching Econ Atlas. We'll see you next time.